Toyota's definitely the best position. Honestly, all legacy automakers, be it Toyota, be it Volkswagen, be it General Motors, whoever is catching up to Tesla. Tesla's got a decade, head start on everybody. But, at the end of the day, making big moves in electric vehicles means you have a future, because internal combustion engine cars aren't going to be here in a decade or a decade and a half. So you got to have a plan that gives you longevity. So at least makers that are doing it are making a mark. And, I've said sometimes that, some people could have said, 100 years ago, oh, Henry Ford invented the Model T, so let's give up on autos. And of course, Toyota didn't, Mercedes didn't, everybody didn't, and a lot of it's the real best market. I mean, all cars are going to be electric in a decade and a half, and so this is the way the whole industry is going to be going. So that it's still early days, and there's room for a lot of players.
But you say that Tesla is a decade ahead of everybody else. What about the Chinese?
Chinese are, this is probably the most exciting part of the story. The Chinese makers are the one, these are the ones who don't really care about a legacy automotive business. And, maybe this is a repeat of what we saw, 40 years ago when the Japanese burst onto the scene with fuel-sipping economic cars. And, the Detroit makers were sort of sleeping about, we don't have to make small cars. And, and the Japanese came and ate their lunch. So, all automakers, all legacy automakers really have to be on their guard about the Chinese makers, because they're not interested in internal combustion engine businesses. They've got the world's biggest market behind them.
Chris, really quickly, the macroeconomic conditions, there is this expectation that we are going to see some kind of significant slowdown, not only in the US, but elsewhere, perhaps in Europe, especially at the same time. Is that going to impact these Japanese automakers in terms of sales moving forward, and by what, or is the demand there that no matter what they produce, they're going to get sold?
It's a tricky question. My view is look, we've gone through about 2 years where there's been an inadequate supply of autos. I read an article the other day that, auto dealers in the U.S. are selling cars with 150,000 miles on them. Is that crazy? And, and it just says how much pent-up demand for autos are out there. Pricing remains very high. So, once the supply situation improves, I'm thinking that, you could see a nice uptick in auto sales. And I'm a lot less worried about some of the economic indicators right now.